Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Shahram Sharif. I'm the founder and CEO of the company called LindaCare. We are in remote patient monitoring of cardiac implanted devices. So for those who still suffer from a bit of a after lunch dip, I'm going to start with something to maybe wake you up. I'm going to throw a scary number at you. I'm going to ask you whether you know what this number means. 18 million. Any idea? So that's the number of patients who died last year from cardiovascular diseases. It's the #1 killer worldwide. Another scary number, 44 million patients today suffer from arrhythmia. Arrhythmia is usually treated 3 different ways, either drugs, ablation therapy, or cardiac implanted devices. So there are currently 10 million patients out there with cardiac electronic implantable devices. These are pacemakers, ICDs, CRTs, implantable loop recorders. So these patients usually come back to hospitals for a checkup once, twice a year. 95% of the cases, everything is fine. They go back home. Next day, there's an adverse effect. They die. There is a better way to do that. You can monitor these patients on a daily basis. You can do early detection of adverse effects, and by that, significantly improve outcomes. But only about 2 million of these patients today are actually enrolled on remote patient monitoring programs. So you would wonder why not everyone is on it. So there's a huge unmet need right there. So today, remote monitoring of these patients with implanted devices is a standard of care. Since 2015, there's an HRS consensus. There's the highest level of evidence that there is significant clinical improvements in outcomes. Mortality rates drop up to 50%. There are fewer hospitalizations, fewer office visits. You can do early detection of deterioration of the condition, so you can prevent adverse effects. There is a reduction in overall healthcare cost, et cetera, et cetera. There is a ton of clinical evidence that leads people to have to follow up patients on a daily basis. Still, it's not happening. And I'll come back to why it's not happening and why this unmet need is there. Now, if you look at the CIED marketplace, so implanted devices, pacemakers, and the like, this is a very significant market. So this is a $20 billion market today, and it's been growing significantly, and it's poised to keep growing. There are different types of devices, and depending on the type of device, there's anywhere between 6-7%, up to more than 13% annual growth that is expected. So this is a huge space, and it's continuing to grow. With that, the remote monitoring aspect of it is growing rapidly as well. So these devices keep transmitting a lot of data. Physicians are overwhelmed with managing that data, which is one of the barriers of enrolling patients in remote patient monitoring. Even though there are CPT codes available and there is a interesting financial incentive, there are still barriers. So today, CPT codes, depending on the type of device, go anywhere from $60 per patient per month up to $250 per patient per month. And this is a recurring business model. So that makes a $1 billion market space, which is largely untapped. And that's what we are trying to address. So we're trying to remove the barriers to large-scale adoption. So this is happening, but the penetration is only about 20% of the patient population. So there are 8 million out of 10 million patients out there not having access to remote patient monitoring, despite of the clinical evidence. So why is there not a large-scale adoption? There are the 2 key aspects, the key barriers. One is lack of proper software tools to monitor the patients efficiently. And beyond that, even having the right tools, there is a significant shortage of staff to do this work. It's not easy work to be done. And those are the things we're addressing. So we set out developing a software platform, which is a vendor-agnostic software platform. We integrate with all the different manufacturers of these devices. These are Medtronics, Boston Scientific, Abbott's. So we integrate data coming off all these implanted devices into one unified platform, which allows the physicians and hospitals to remotely monitor these patients in a very efficient way. It's a SaaS model, recurring revenue business model. But beyond that, as I mentioned earlier, there is still quite a lot of challenge on the staffing side. So people kept asking us whether we can actually help them with the service. So we developed a service model, essentially having our own team using a clinical team using our own software platform. So it's a tech-enabled patient monitoring service that we're offering on the market. Basically monitoring the patients on behalf of the hospitals and clinics. So this is our second offering. So today, we're a digital health and a tech-enabled healthcare services company. Slightly different profile than most of the companies presenting these days, which is mostly hardcore medtech. But we are in that field because we are dealing with the same type of equipment and same type of patients out there. Our mission is basically enabling large-scale adoption. We're not reinventing remote patient monitoring, but we're addressing the major barriers to large-scale adoption and enabling large-scale adoption because we see that unmet clinical need. Our long-term vision is to take this to all different chronic disease areas because this is happening in every disease areas, COPD, diabetes, and any other chronic disease area where remote patient monitoring is actually becoming more and more relevant. Our initial focus is the cardiovascular disease space. Within that, a subsegment arrhythmia and heart failure, and within that, the patients that are treated by implanted electronic devices. We started off in October 2015, a little more than 4 years ago. We've had 2 rounds, total of 10 million raised so far. We have offices and operations here in the US and Europe, and today we're about 27 people. With that raise, we have already accomplished some significant milestones. As I mentioned earlier, we have 2 different offerings that are developed and commercialized. OnePulse is our software solution, which is an award-winning remote patient monitoring SaaS platform. ProPulse is our tech-enabled service model, where essentially we have our own CMS-accredited IDTF, that's an independent diagnostic and testing facility, monitoring service here in the US. Our team is based out of Stamford, Connecticut. We have a team of cardiac device specialists that are running these services. Our software platform and services are ISO 13485 certified, which is a foundation for CE Mark and FDA approval. To be clear, we do not need to be CE marked and FDA approved yet. We have a number of software features which will at some point start doing interpretation and data interpretation and diagnostic, which will then push us over that line. And we are ready to go for those certifications by having this ISO certification in place already. In the last round, we had a strategic partner joining us. Philips invested in the last round, and we worked on a integration of our software platforms with Philips's cardiovascular software platform, which was just launched. So we also have a global commercial distribution model with Philips, which is going to start happening as of Q2 this year, helping us with scaling. We have strong initial commercial traction both in Europe and US, and a very strong sales pipeline. In terms of revenue, we are looking at growing into a 30 million revenue company in the next 4 years. And as I mentioned, we have a proven business model based on the US reimbursement fees being available to our service model. So we are looking to raise our next round of 10 million equity financing by Q3 this year, which we will be using mainly to accelerate our commercial development, taking it beyond this initial traction that we're seeing, which is very promising. We are also using that to scale our clinical operations to service more tech-enabled service customers, which is becoming a larger demand here in the US. And we keep enhancing the software platform with additional features to keep enhancing the productivity gains. So today we can double the number of patients that anyone can do without our software platforms. We're looking to multiply that by 5, 10, etc. So one person can do multiple of thousands of patients remotely. We have a strong team with a background in both medical technology, software. This is my second venture. So together we have done more exits. We have done a number of fundraisings. Dr. Lerman, who's heading up our clinical operations, have been practicing electrophysiologist for 18 years here in LA, one of the first people who introduced remote patient monitoring in this space. So we're blessed to have a strong team. We have board members, including a former Medtronic VP for 29 years, so we are very familiar with the space, and that is giving us a great network to expand our business. That's us. I will be at the breakout session if anyone wants to come and talk, and I'll be happy to answer more questions. Thank you.